Hello and welcome everyone to the first episode of developing Shadow Sands, an RPG-RTS hybrid. And in this episode I will show you the basic controls I set up, and I actually used someone else's tutorial. I will link it to you in the description. So this is also how I started. So you can see here is already a lot in the scene. There's the terrain, there are several units, and I set up a few of things to make other videos. You can watch them on my channel as well, where I show you special effects, animation and stuff. But here we want to go a little bit more into detail about the programming parts. So first thing first, here you can see the camera view. I have set the camera to be in a 45 degree for bird view, and we start in the middle of the plane. Okay, so why bird view? Because like I mentioned in the title, this should be an RPG and real-time strategy hybrid. So the control when we are moving around the world should be RTS-like, and we also have a lot of RPG elements like equipment for our characters and leveling our characters and so on. So the game is focused on our characters, but we are controlling them RTS style. Okay, so we're not using the typical single player or our character player controls. So for the camera, I wrote my own camera controller script. You can see it has some parameters which we are going to see soon. Our camera should be moving when we are moving to the edge, and I call this handle edge panning. And we want to zoom in and out. And I also want to move the camera with the middle mouse button. So I call this middle mouse panning. So here I got some data. So we got the data for the mouse control. We obviously want to have the camera. Actually we don't need this parameter. You will see a lot of this stuff because I'm developing on the go, so we don't need this anymore. I call this panning damp because I slowed down the speed we are panning with, and the edge panning speed. Here I speeded up the speed of the camera when we move to the side. So, but how do we do it? Let's get into this function. So I guess the most common one is the edge panning. So despite the order here, we are going to go in this first. So we are just going to do it the simplest way possible. We are measuring the distance to the edges. So we are going to see where the cam is, and we subtract where our mouse button is, the mouse position Y. So, and we also do this for the bottom, the right and the left. Simple as that. And for the bottom and the left, because here we have to subtract. If we go to the top, we have to subtract. When you look at my mouse, when I go to the top, we have to subtract from the edge at the top the distance of our mouse. But when I go to the bottom of the screen, we don't have to subtract anything, because where our input mouse is, like for example like here, like 100 pixels or so, we already have our distance. And then we are going into some if conditions. So if the distance to any of the edges is smaller than our border size that we set in our parameters, and it's bigger than 0, because if someone has left the window with the mouse, like here when you watch my mouse and I go out of the screen, I don't want to scroll anymore. So it's only scrolling when we are inside the screen with the mouse. For example, if someone is going to play the game with not full screen but window screen. So this is also included here by not scrolling if the distance is bigger than 0. Okay, so if that's the case, if we are close to any edge, well, we're just moving our cam, which we defined by myCam, and this is set up in the start where we say myCam is the camera, which we just need to get the component here because we are putting the script onto the camera itself. Okay, so this is for edge panning, pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And yeah, we also wanted to move the screen with the middle mouse button. So we put it like this. This is all handled in the update, so this is updating all the time. So if the middle mouse button, with is the button 2, of course the left mouse button is 0, right mouse button is 1, and middle mouse button is the 2. So we are saving our scroll start position. So when the button is pressed, and then we are going to move so we are setting this to 0, we are getting the vector and setting it to 0, and if we have here we get it when it gets down, so this is important. When we press the mouse button, we are saving the starting position. Then we are updating where we move to. So, and when while we are doing this, so while the mouse button 2 is being pressed down all the time, so we can also get back into another direction, we are moving by the difference of the mouse position to the start position. And we're slowing this down by damp, because if we don't slow it down, so for example, if you move like 500 pixels to the side, you would be moving like 500 units otherwise, and you have to be pretty zoomed out and on a pretty big map. So I'm dividing by the panning damp, so this is why I called it damp, because it slows the movement down. And here this is also important for our setup, because we're in bird view. We don't want to zoom in. We don't want to change our y coordinate. We are only changing our x and y coordinate. So this is why I'm not just using the transform on everything. So I'm also I'm only using it on the x and y coordinate. So and okay, so it's grayed out here. I wanted this all the time while I was talking, but we actually need the movement here when we set it like this. Okay, so this is our middle mouse panning. So simply when the mouse button, the middle mouse button is put down, we save the current position of the mouse, and then we are moving the camera on the x and y coordinate based on the moving. So this is the edge panning, and so now handle map size. So this is more of specific to my map. We are getting the map size over our game management data. So I put this on the data manager, and we are we're saying if the player wants to move the mouse to the edge of the map, then it's restricted by the edges. So here you can see that I have this restriction: edge left, edge right, edge bottom, edge top, and we can't move the camera X or that position further than this. So this is simply so the player is not moving the camera out of the map. And lastly, the zooming. So to zoom in and out, we get input mouse scroll data, and here we only want to change the Y coordinate. So again, we restrict it a little bit. So if it has to be at least a little bit of movement in this position, and so if it's greater than 0, and so this is again, this is the restrictions. Was checking again. So we don't want to get under the plane. So again, we restrict the zooming, so we don't zoom under the plane of the map. And also we don't want to zoom out too far, so that we so we can't see anything anymore. And then we simply changing the position again. We're keeping the X coordinate, but we are changing the Y and Z coordinate by the input mouse scroll data. So let me show this to you now. And you can see when I move here to the edge, so it's like 30 pixels for now, but now it's not moving further because we are already at the edge here. We can see that edge by moving more to the bottom. Okay, and we can scroll out, and here you can see now why it's important to move the Y and the Z coordinate when we are scrolling in or out. Okay, our team died. And here, actually, if I scroll too fast, sometimes I'm getting too deep into the plane, so it's not working perfectly. So there will be some more adjustments, as you will see all over the series, that there are that I'm still into developing it, and as you can see, there is already a lot of things happening. I will come to this in later videos. So this for the camera controls. We have the edge panning by checking how close the mouse is at the edge. We have the zooming in and zooming out with the constraints on these variables. And we have the edge and the panning. So now I click the middle mouse button, and now you can see, even though my mouse button is not at the edge, I'm moving to the side, to the bottom, to the top. So we want to move the camera, we did that, but we also want to select and move units. And to do that, I'm using this function to control everything that happens on the fighting screen. So there are also things related to the eye we won't cover in this video. Okay, but what do we need to control units? This is a little bit more advanced here. I also selected several troops. But let's start with selecting single troops. So this is handled by the click select function. So if we click some unit, we are deselecting every unit, every enemy, and add this unit to our selection. And for this, we have our unit list. So all units that can be used are in the unit list. Then we have the unit selected list. We have the enemies unit list and the enemy selected list. Why do we have two of this list? Because the enemies list I'm using to, so this is also something I put in further into the development. You only want to select one enemy at once, so you're not group selecting enemies because you can't control them. If you want to see enemy stats, you're selecting one unit, but I also have an enemies list to use this for my fighters, because maybe the player wants them to fight automatically, and for this it's important that our characters can go through the list and find the closest enemy, or whatever setting is used for this. Okay, so we are searching for the click select. This is our first setup. So unit click, and there's something you may have heard, maybe not, and this is the raycast. So this is a permanent running function. We have a few layers here. So we are using the main camera. We have the ground marker, which is the unit marker when a unit is selected. We want to have this. And we are using layers here. Every frame we check in the update function if the left mouse button is checked. Of course, you can use any value you want. So, and because I had some problems with the layer mask UI, because I often hit the ground, I also put this in. So the event system is is part of the canvas systems, buttons and so on. So we check if the left mouse button is pressed, but the mouse is not over any UI object. So we are only getting into this if condition if we are not over an active user interface. And then with the raycast, which is the projection of your mouse into this 3D world. So for example, if I'm with my mouse here, I'm over the tree or over this tree. So we are projecting from the 2D plane into the 3D game world. So, and then we're checking what our mouse is hitting over the camera with the mouse position. So, and if it's clickable, which are our standard units, then we are checking if the shift button was pressed or not. So we can also, I added this later, so you can click onto several units, and with shift you can add them to the selected units list. So you can select several units with shift clicking, or you can just click one unit if you already have units selected, but you're just left click, you're getting into the click select function. And if your mouse ray hits an enemy, we are going to deselect the enemy, because we only want to select one enemy at a time. Otherwise you would click different enemies and you would have them all selected. We don't want that. So we deselect the enemy and then we click select the enemy. So this is different from selecting a unit, because we are controlling our unit, we are not controlling the enemy. And also we want to get access to the skills of our unit, and we don't want to give the player access to the enemy skill. And also there's the third case where we are not clicking a character or an enemy. So in this case we are probably hitting the ground, and in this case we want to deselect all units. So this is basically the basic setup. We select one unit with click select. If we already have units selected, we are adding units to our selection with shift click. We can select an enemy, or we can deselect all by just clicking onto the ground. So let's get back into the unit selection and let's see what this function actually does. Okay, so if we click select, we deselect all and we deselect the enemy, and we add the unit that was clicked to our unit selected. So this is a list with game objects, and we add the unit to it. And we can just use the add because the function, the list is empty because we deselected all. We see what this function does later. And every time we select a unit, we put at first child the marker, I will show you after this, and set the game object to true. So the marker is just not active when the unit is not not selected, and we set it to true when the unit is selected. Similar to shift click select, so we are not deselecting our units, so not deselect all, but we deselect the enemy, and to the unit we have already collected, if the unit is not contained already into the list, we add it and we set it child active, and if it's already in the list, we deselect it. If we're hitting the ground or if we are just doing a click select, we are going to deselect everything that has been selected before. So right now, maybe I will change this later, I also have this UI canvas, and it will get deactivated if everything is deselected. And for each unit that is in the selected group in this list, we will set the children inactive, so active to false, and we will then clear the unit selected list, set it to empty. So in click select enemy is similar. We deselect everything because we don't want to control anything while we are watching the enemy. This is not a list, this is a single object. We set it to enemy and get its child active. And deselect enemy, we are just setting the enemy selected to 0 and set as child inactive. And like I said, here is a lot of skills stuff we won't cover in this video. Okay, so let's check this out. So if I click here, I get this unit. If I click on the enemy, I get this specific unit. And I can also shift click. So now you can see I'm left clicking again. I can't do this with the enemies. I can't shift click them. And what you also maybe saw there is that if the enemy is in front of my characters, when I shift clicked, I couldn't add them because they are not available for shift clicking. So yeah, so as you can see, let me show it again. If I click an enemy, I can see his stats. Right now this is very messed up because I added some stuff around. We will get this in another video. But I can also shift click them and I get several units and I can control them all at once. But of course, as you maybe have already seen, I also want to select several units with this DragSelect. So how do we do that? And also maybe I want to use more buttons on my keyboard and want to tap through the units, and that's what we're doing. We are going to use tap to the units. I want to select all units that are in this rectangular you saw on the screen. So again, here we're deselecting enemy, and every unit that is contained in this rectangular will be added. And we are unit selected, as we saw in deselect. Here we're not deselecting because we are just collecting everything that is in this in the selected area. So if the unit is not already contained in the area, we add it and set it child to active, which was the gray little circles you saw around the units. So, but how does this DragSelect work? Therefore, we have to go into DragSelect function, which is here. So we need this box visual for this and our selection box. And you can see this here. This box is already here. And this is actually one-to-one, like I got it from this other guy. So at the start of the game, we're drawing a visual. You can't see it because it will always just stuff to be visible when you stop clicking the left mouse button. And since you haven't pressed already the left mouse button when the game starts, this draw visual will disappear. Okay, so whenever the left mouse button is clicked, we are getting its position and starting a new rectangular. And if the mouse button is held by get mouse button, we are going to its end position. So we are changing the visuals. As you could see, the box was changing all the time. So this is updated every time we are moving our position while holding down the mouse button. And if the mouse button is released, we are going into select units and draw visual. So this is from the camera point of view, so it's a vector 2. And we are drawing our box, which is, we already seen this a bit in the camera, very standard. We are getting our positions and getting a box size and just get a rectangular. Here we are getting our mouse positions to be able to select the units. So from the unit selection, which is where it's all handled, this is an instance, and in this instance we are getting access to the unit list. And if the selection box, which we drew here, contains this unit, therefore we have to go from the camera back to the screen point. So again, this is a projection from the 2D perspective of the camera into the 3D world, and we are getting the position of the unit, and then we are going to the unit selection instance DragSelect function. For each unit in the unit list, which are the player units, for every unit in this list, we are looking from the camera point of view into the world, if it's in this box, and then we add it to DragSelect. And as we see here in DragSelect, we are adding every unit that was contained and that's not already contained in the selected list to our selected list. When I click the mouse button, I draw this box, and if there is any unit into it, like this, they are getting added to the list. Again, if I click somewhere, they are deselected. I probably have to fix a little bit still when units get set to active and deactive. There is some details I have to fix, but this is the general setup. And the last thing for this video is the tabbing through the units, which is probably the simplest of all. In the update of this unit selection function, this part here, select the next unit. So if we click the tab button, we switch over to the next selected unit number, and if the selected unit number is bigger than the list of units we have, then we're switching back to 0, which is the first unit in our list, and we are deselecting all, and then we are add the unit to our selection list, and this one. So, and like in every selection we did, we set its child to 0. So you can see that here, which lets me use the units very quickly. I don't have to be with my mouse onto the enemies. I click tab and I can click W, and you can see this ability is activated. I can click Q and activate this. I can click every unit and press R, and they are switching their gear. But this is something for another video. in this one I can just switch through the units with the tab. Okay, so you can see since there are a lot of layers going on here, I set the enemy layer. For my player units, I set the clickable layer. For the plane, I set the ground layer. So there's a lot of stuff happening. The functions themselves are fairly simple, but it's a bit collection, as you can see also here with my project, which still is just starting, and we already have a lot of stuff here going on. And yeah, but aside from the selection markers, it's working just fine. And we can select units, we can tap through units, we can click on units, we can shift, select, click, we can move our camera around. And yeah, I hope you found it somewhat informative. And yeah, if you want to know more about the game, you can watch my other videos where I show some gameplay. In the next video, I would like to show you what you can see here. So I made some shaders, maybe you're interested in that, or maybe you're interested in other stuff I did for this game or in general in game developing. So feel free to ask, leave a like, leave a comment if you like, and yeah, I hope you liked it, and we see each other again. Thank you for tuning in and for your attention. Have a nice day.